Are you thinking about moving to New Zealand? Well, stay right here because I'm going to talk to you about the 5 pros and cons of moving to this beautiful country. Hey, what's up? Lance Mulu from eXp Realty. And if you're thinking about buying, selling, investing, or moving to this beautiful country of ours, feel free to reach out. I'll leave my contact details in the description below. Would love to talk to you. And with that said, let's get started. One of the pros of moving into this beautiful country is that New Zealand is multicultural. What am I talking about? We are a mix of European, which is approximately 69%, Maori, indigenous people of New Zealand, and around 16%, 15% Asian, and around 8% non-Maori or Pacific Islanders. And because of that, you're going to find yourself talking to people from all backgrounds coming to New Zealand. Geographically, over 3/4 of the population live in the North Island, and out of that, about 1/3 of that population live in the main centre of Auckland. The other main centres of Wellington, Christchurch, Hamilton and Dunedin make up most of the population. And because New Zealand is so multicultural, you'll find that Kiwis are in most part really laid back. So it's easy enough for you to strike up a conversation with everyday Kiwis. What I've often heard from a lot of people coming from overseas is that they find Kiwis pretty chilled. And so it's easy to strike up a conversation or make friends. So if that's the sort of person that you are, if you like making friends, if you like being sociable and meeting a culture which is like you, very friendly, New Zealand is the place to come to. One of the pros of moving to New Zealand is that there are so many activities to do. Number one, you could check out Hobbiton. This is just outside the Waikato town of Matamata. You can do some stargazing, and for that you want to check out Mount Cook, and especially visit the Big Sky stargazing in Mount Cook, or join one of the Dark Sky Project tours at Tekapo's Mount John Observatory. There's a hot water beach at the Coromandel Peninsula, and how about New Zealand's most famous day walk, the Tongariro Alpine Crossing? Whale watching in Kaikoura, check out the Milford Sound in the South Island, check out the Poor Knights Island, can do bungee jumping, check out the Southern Lights, how about the Waitomo Caves? There are so many things that you can do, and if you're an activities type of person or you just like a road trip throughout State Highway 1 from the North Island down to the South Island, hire a car, check out the scenery, you will not regret it. One of the other benefits of having such a multicultural country is that you're going to find that reflected in the food. So New Zealand love their meats. You've got your pork, lamb, beef, but then you've got the Asian and the Pacific Island foods that you'll either find at a flea market or night markets, which has really grown in popularity over the last 3 or 4 years. Other than your regular McDonald's, BK, Wendy's, KFC, New Zealand also has a variety of different types of ethnic foods such as Indian, Chinese, Samoan, Tongan, essentially multicultural types of food that you cannot go wrong with. So if you're the sort of person that likes to try different types of food, you can't go wrong by coming to New Zealand. Finally, the 5th benefit and the pro of coming to New Zealand, especially if you're under 30, is that New Zealand are open for business in terms of getting a working or a holiday visa. So if you want to come and try New Zealand out, get a taste before you make a decision whether it's a permanent place for you. I'll leave a link to Immigration New Zealand's working holiday visa program on the description below, so you can go out and check that out and see whether it's something that will suit you or not. And now that we've gone through the 5 pros of moving to New Zealand, are there any disadvantages? Of course, New Zealand, although I can say it's a beautiful country, there are some negatives. Other than the fact that, number one, we are so far away from the rest of the world. Even our nearest neighbour, Australia, is still 2.5 hours away by plane, means that New Zealand is such an isolated place. So just to get here either from the United States, Asia, or even over from the UK, you could be looking at either a 12-hour flight to 24 hours to get here from the rest of the world. And that's one of the reasons why it probably affects the cost of living, which represents the negative number 2 of moving to New Zealand. Things are really expensive. Now, I know after the virus of unknown origin affected us a couple of years ago, the cost of living for everyone has gone up. New Zealand is not an exception. Petrol, food, housing has gone through the roof, which means that if you're going to fill up your car, a large SUV or sports utility vehicle, you could be looking at anything between 140 and 180 New Zealand dollars to fill up your car. The cost of food is also expensive. In the supermarkets, prices on fruit and vegetables have gone up. So everywhere you look, it's not cheap to live in New Zealand. One of the cons of living in New Zealand is that the price of real estate here is really expensive. Ideally, you need 10% to buy your own home. The average price in New Zealand as of right now is around $889,000. Now, this could differ massively depending on where you choose to settle down. I'm going to use Auckland for an example because that's where I live. In Auckland, the average price is around $1.4 million. Now that is still down 12% from a year ago. Depending on where you came from, interest rates in the last couple of years have shot straight up. They were at an all-time low back in 2020 following the pandemic. They went to an all-time low in New Zealand of around the 2% mark. And from there, it's just shot straight back up to where interest rates now are at around 6%. And because of that, because of the affordability factor, a lot of the values in homes has dropped significantly from 2021 through to right now, 2023, as I record this. So if buying in Auckland, ideally you need a 10% deposit with an income of over $100,000 per year to be able to get into your first home. Another con of moving to New Zealand is you've got to know that the crime rate, both retail and car crime in New Zealand, has risen massively in the last 24 months. Some people are pointing the finger at inflation, rising inflation, and also for the cost of living. There is no doubt that New Zealand are battling with a crime spike. If we're breaking that down, retail crime rates have been on the rise for the last 4 years. Reported theft has dropped slightly in 2020, and people are thinking that this could be linked to the COVID-19 lockdown. But overall, it's been skyrocketing with thousands more cases recorded between 20 and 21, and then again between 2021 and 2022. Data from the police show that shoplifting crimes like robbery, burglary, and theft have increased to a fresh high in 2022. And so right now, it's a massive battle for the government to get tougher on crime. And as I record this, New Zealand are preparing for an election. And with that, there is battling ideologies or ideas as to how we can get the crime rate down, inflation, and as well as the cost of living. So that might be something for you to keep an eye on if you're outside of New Zealand looking in, and whether New Zealand is going to have a change of government or not, because that in itself will affect how New Zealand deals with this cost of living crisis that's currently being felt. And finally, last but not least, is public transport. I live here in Auckland, and the public transport here, could I just say, is really unreliable. We're talking about buses that at sometimes they don't turn up at all, and we're also talking about trains that sometimes break down, affecting the entire line. So public transport in New Zealand, just know before you come here, especially in Auckland specifically, because this is the largest city in New Zealand, it's not reliable. So you're more likely going to be using an Uber, or you're better off buying a cheap car or a vehicle to get yourself around on time, because here it's really bad. And that's it, team, the pros and cons of moving to New Zealand. And if you got any value out of this video, please don't forget to click the like button, and feel free to subscribe, and don't forget that post notification bell so you don't miss a single video when I bring one out. And with that said, have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care.